stories of the day, such as Harris County suing the Trump administration due to what's been described as an unlawful reorganization of the federal government. I'm Ernie Manous.
And I'm Celeste Diaz-Sherman. How important is clean air to you? Air Alliance Houston's Jennifer Hadayia will discuss Houston's air quality.
And I'm Frank Billingsley. Plus, the national touring company of The Wiz is coming on down the road. We'll talk to actor Alan Mingo Jr., who plays the title role.
And as Ernie, Frank, and I discuss the top headlines of the day, we want your thoughts, questions, and concerns. Give us a call at 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org.
All that and more right here on Hello Houston, right after the news from NPR and News 88.7.
Hello Houston is made possible in part by founding sponsors John Bradshaw and Kathy Sanders, and by gifts from listeners like you.
Live from NPR News, I'm Lakshmi Singh. The U.S. economy has shrunk for the first time in 3 years. NPR's Scott Horsley says the Commerce Department found gross domestic product fell at an annual pace of 0.3% from January to March.
This is all about the president's trade war, which has been really disruptive both around the world and here at home. Taxes on imports are now the highest they've been since at least the Great Depression. That's triggered a big sell-off in the stock market. And Americans are telling pollsters they're really pessimistic and think we could be headed for a recession.
NPR's Scott Horsley. Government data show President Trump's efforts to downsize the federal government are taking an especially heavy toll on black employees. NPR's Hansi Lo Wong reports black people make up a greater share of the federal civilian workforce compared to the population as a whole.
The government's latest public data from September show black people made up about a third or more of the staff at many federal agencies, including the Departments of Education, Treasury, and Housing and Urban Development. Chris Marsh, a sociologist and demographer at the University of Maryland, says the data show the Trump administration's cuts are likely to hurt the Washington, D.C. suburbs in Maryland that federal work has helped turn into the country's two wealthiest majority black counties.
If you're now deciding to shrink the jobs in the federal government, you do understand that one of the consequences is going to be that you're going to be probably shrinking the black middle class. Is that by design, or is that just like a happenstance of what's happening right now?
The White House did not respond to NPR's request for comment. Hansi Lo Wong, NPR News, Washington.
A federal judge in Vermont is ordering the release of Columbia University student while his immigration case is pending. Mohsen Madawi was arrested and detained by masked agents April 14th following a naturalization interview at an immigration office. In a petition, he argues government officials violated his First Amendment right to free speech and his right to due process. The Trump administration alleges Madawi's presence undermines its effort to combat anti-Semitism. Vietnam is marking 50 years since communist forces seized the city of Saigon, ending the Vietnam War. Here's NPR's John Ruich.
Following the war, Saigon was renamed Ho Chi Minh City after the revolutionary leader Ho Chi Minh, and its streets were packed for the celebration. Chinese, Cambodian, and Lao troops took part. Vietnamese Communist Party chief To Lam addressed the nation. He celebrated the victory as one of justice over tyranny and said the focus now is on the future. To build a better Vietnam, he said, the country must unleash all productive forces, unlock resources, and tap the potential to accelerate socioeconomic development. More than 58,000 Americans and hundreds of thousands, possibly millions of Vietnamese died in the war. Today, the two countries enjoy close relations. John Ruich, NPR News.
U.S. stocks are trading lower this hour. The Dow is down more than 200 points, or roughly 0.5%. It's NPR News.
Live from News 88.7 in Houston, I'm Gabrielle Dawkins. Two local universities have confirmed that at least 18 student visas have been restored since last Friday. News 88.7's Patricia Ortiz says that includes students and recent graduates of the University of Houston and Rice University.
Federal officials began terminating the visas of students last month, many times without giving a reason. Some students were accused of participating in protests about the war in Gaza, while others had traffic violations. Adrienne Nguyen is a University of Houston student and co-founder of Cougs Rise. Her immigrant advocacy group was created this year amidst ongoing policy changes. Nguyen says students with their visas restored are still impacted.
For any student to get their visa revoked, they have to scramble to figure out, okay, what am I going to do next? They may have to pay a lot of legal fees to contest that issue. They have to stop their studies. It can cause a lot of turmoil in their home lives with their families.
Texas has more than 76,000 international students, according to the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. I'm Patricia Ortiz, News 88.7.
The Houston Galveston Area Council is studying potentially new public transit routes for Fort Bend County. The study looks at routes along the US 90A corridor to connect them to the Texas Medical Center and downtown Houston. Thomas Gray, a principal transportation planner for the council, led the study. It included a survey of more than 900 residents.
So mainly people are concerned about congestion. They'd like to see more public transportation options, but they'd also like just overall improvements to transportation on the corridor.
Public transportation options could include a light rail or a rapid transit bus system. And Houston businessman Tillman Fertitta has been confirmed by the Senate to be the next ambassador to Italy and San Marino. Wyoming Senator Cynthia Loomis read the vote.
The yeas are 82. The noes are 15. The nomination is confirmed.
It's currently 79 degrees, mostly cloudy. I'm Gabrielle Dawkins, News 88.7.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Progressive. Progressive Commercial Insurance protects small businesses from retailers to tradespeople. Progressive covers a variety of business needs with a range of coverages. More at progressivecommercial.com.
Live from the University of Houston, it's Hello Houston, an open forum on today's biggest stories affecting Houston and beyond. Call now, 713-440-8870, or let us know your thoughts on today's topics by emailing us at talk@hellohouston.org. Now here's your host for Hello Houston, Ernie Manous, Celeste Diaz-Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
Hello, Houston.
Hello there. It's funny, Celeste was just saying, we're usually so chit-chatty right before the show, and today all three of us have been like doing
Working.
our thing.
I had an insurance issue, so feel sorry for me.
Oh.
I know, but you've got to get those things paid, and you got this panic where it's like, did I pay that? Oh, God, I didn't pay that. I got to pay that. I got to get that all fixed. Anyway, it's fixed.
I know nothing about any of that because everything in my life is on auto pay.
Uh-huh.
This was supposed to be.
That's a problem.
That's where therein lied the problem.
Well, you know what isn't a problem? It's watching and joining us for this show each day, because you can watch us on YouTube. Just go to the Houston Public Media channel or go to our website, hellohouston.org, and you can click the big orange button and you can watch us live. And also there's a chat group that goes on YouTube that everyone gets involved in.
I love watching the chat group. It's a whole community, and what I love about it, it's in time, right then and there. As soon as we're talking about it, they are sending us messages. So keep those chats coming.
Remember, of course, you can always call us, 713-440-8870, and come live on the air and chat with us, or even send us your questions. You can talk to us via email at talk@hellohouston.org. But today we got a really big announcement, and this is a first even for this whole station that we're doing this.
Yes.
We have an active text line. So now if you don't want to talk to us and you don't want to write an email and you don't want to join us in a chat group, text us your comments. And the cool thing is it's the same number that we use for your phone calls. So you can text us at 713-440-8870. It's live and active today. Even just text, say hello. Let us know you're listening.
Because there are so many younger people that don't use their phone. If you get a call, you immediately wait for it maybe to go to voicemail.
Yeah, like me.
Or just text,
Never call
send me a
anyone.
text.
Send me a text. If you want to talk, emails will back up. I'm like, don't email me. Don't call me. Send me a text. That I'll actually respond to.
I remember the first text I ever received, about 2004. Do you remember the very first?
No, not at all.
Yeah.
I thought,
that sounds about
and I
right.
thought, what is this? Why did Tom Downing just say hello to me? And how did this happen? And I'm like, and I'm not good. And that was when you had to do
T9.
Yes.
Remember like the ABCD?
Yes, it was such a pain. I'm like, I don't have time for this.
I don't remember that
But
at
now
all.
it's
I
right.
remember having a beeper. Do you remember having a beeper?
Oh, yeah, I hated the beeper.
Yeah, but
I remember when only doctors had
See,
beepers.
I am a purist. I still like to pick up the phone. If there's something, if my friends are texting, I still like to just go straight to a call.
Not me. Okay. Weather out there, it's a little rainy.
A little dicey,
gross.
but not too bad. 30% chance of rain.
We have a full show today. We're also going to be talking about air quality. That's going to be coming up in just a moment, but I want to get right in today's topics. Celeste, lead us off.
Coming out of Harris County, Judge Lena Hidalgo and County Attorney Christian Menefee are suing the Trump Trump administration. In a morning news conference yesterday, Hidalgo and Menefee explained how the lawsuit is in response to unlawful reorganization of the federal government, claiming the restructuring efforts have already triggered mass layoffs across federal agencies and could lead to the closure of local Social Security field offices. And as we head into hurricane season, they say these cuts pose significant risks to emergency management operations. They're worried about potential cuts to agencies like FEMA. They said it could make it harder to recover from a disaster. And boy, do Houstonians know about that. The county is joining a coalition of local governments and labor organizations in this lawsuit. And joining us now is Harris County Attorney Christian Menefee. Christian, thank you so much for joining us. I believe actually we're getting him on the line.
So
yeah,
what do you
he
think
will
about
be
this?
joining us in a few minutes. This is really interesting. I think a lot of areas across, a lot of local officials across the U.S. are feeling these cuts.
Well, the thing is, I think everyone can agree, and rarely in today's politics can we all agree on something, that government is bloated in a lot of ways. Goes all the way back to when, a toilet seat was costing $700, or a screw, or all these ridiculous costs that we pay.
Yep.
The question becomes, how do you approach it and scale it down so that you don't lose the necessary services you need? You're still providing for your public, but you're not overburdening them with the cost of it. And I think that's where the question comes in. So, yes, is it great that the federal government is slashing? Of course, it's good that we're bringing down those costs. Is it being done in the right way? Are we losing important things we need? And we're going to find out in this area very quickly.
I've made the point before that if you took just the population of Harris County, we would be the 25th state in the union. So we're bigger population-wise than Oklahoma, than Louisiana, than Arkansas, than Mississippi, almost to Alabama. I mean, it goes on and on. So when you consider our population, this is a very good move by Harris County Attorney Chris Menefee and Hidalgo, because we are a state.
Right.
We have to be protected. Our infrastructure alone is so problematic. And then you get into this issue of what happens to the whole water issue. And if we have a hurricane and you don't have electricity and you can't pump clean water because you need the electricity, I mean, it goes on and on. And then trying to get FEMA help after a hurricane. I hope we can get Chris on the line to explain more about this.
Yes, we really want to know more about this. But, a point that Ernie was making, when you ask that question, are we doing this the right way? Is the federal government doing it the right way? I think there's two lines of thoughts, right? President Trump is a businessman, and he's trying to treat this essentially like a business. And the government, I'm not sure, is actually supposed to be run like a business.
Slash and burn is tough.
Yeah.
But also, I don't know that it's, and I would love business leaders to give us a call and talk to us about this in a business. When it comes time to cut costs, when you have to bring your overhead down,
right? How
do you look at your budgets? How do you look at your expenditures to see where are the right areas to cut and not cut? I don't think you can just look on the balance sheet, old terms, and say, this is the most expensive thing we have, just cut it. No, you've got to look. There's nuance to everything that happens. And you've got to find, yes, some things can be combined, things like that. So it'll be interesting if we can. Give us your thoughts, 713-440-8870. I'm going to move on to the next story. And we'll if you've got a comment, a thought on this topic, let us know. Okay, Texas is taking steps towards formally renaming the Gulf of Mexico, the Gulf of America, on state maps and documents, and it comes in the form of Senate Bill 1717. The bill has passed a vote in the Senate and will now head to the House for consideration. SB 1717 follows the lead, as we know, of President Donald Trump's executive order that directed federal agencies to change the name back in January. The language in SB 1717, a number you should remember now, the bill refers to the Gulf of Mexico title as inaccurate and outdated. Give us a call. What do you think? Gulf of Mexico? Gulf of America? What are you going to use? 713-440-8870. Frank, I got a feeling you have an opinion on this.
It's neither inaccurate or outdated. It's been the Gulf of Mexico before 1717, the year, I mean, it's and really, we only have authority over 17 nautical miles off the shore, which is about 14 actual what miles we think of offshore. So you know how cruise ships, they can't open the casino sometimes.
Right,
they
so you
can't,
get to international waters.
Until you get to, but international waters start there. And internationally, the Gulf of Mexico has been that for 300 years, and it's not just an arbitrary. I mean, it's been agreed upon by the world that this is called the Gulf of Mexico, and to just change it, why don't we call New Mexico New America if we're going to go that route?
Well, for starters, President Trump is not the first president to rename things like monuments and areas. I know we're looking at Texas, but if we zoom out a little bit, President Obama renamed several different things during his time as president. And now, to your point,
but are we
Frank,
talking about things
there
outside
was within
of our borders or within our borders?
Right. Well, that was the other thing. That was my second point, was that it was within the U.S. borders.
Like Denali Park.
Denali, it's now Mount McKinley.
Right.
Going
You
back
can
to
rename
it.
your children if you want, but you better not rename Frank's son. It's not yours.
So within Texas,
I think well said.
It will not actually cost the state anything.
You want to come back to this? I think we have.
I
Chris
do
on
want to
that.
come back to this, and we want you to come back to it.
Yes.
Phone number 713-440-8870. You can call or text to that number. But to go back to our earlier story, Celeste?
Yes, I believe Harris County Attorney Christian Menefee is joining us now via phone. Hi, Christian, are you there?
Yes, I am. How are y'all doing today?
Well, thank you for joining us. We're doing well. What else can you tell us about this lawsuit that you and Judge Lina Hidalgo are bringing forward, and has it been officially filed?
Yes, the lawsuit has been filed. This is a lawsuit that is filed by Harris County, by a set of unions from across the country, as well as local governments from across the country. And the point is clear, and that's that President Trump is overstepping the outer bounds of his constitutional and legal limits by dismantling these federal government agencies. Congress sets the power of appropriation. They decide what agencies exist and which doesn't. And what we've seen from the Trump administration is an extra constitutional attempt to dismantle agencies that Congress is not authorized to be dismantled. So we're excited to be standing up for these federal employees. And it's unfortunate the Trump administration has brought it to this.
Clarify for me, if you would, what you're saying is, and I may have misunderstood, that it is not the authority of the president to do this. It would have to go through Congress, correct?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. The president has, in a widespread way, attempted to eliminate entire portions of executive agencies, has tried to dismantle entire agencies, including the Department of Education, in a way that he's simply not authorized to under federal law and under the U.S. Constitution.
My follow-up question to that, once we clarify that point, is then isn't it the responsibility of the Congress to call action on the fact that the president is doing something that would be outside the lines of his authority? How does it then become a lawsuit for you folks down at this level to be doing it? Shouldn't Congress be doing it? And if they're not, shouldn't you be going after Congress for not stepping up and doing their constitutional duty?
No. The president is held accountable for stepping outside the bounds of the Constitution in two potential ways. One is through judicial review, which means that a lawsuit has to be filed and has to get in front of the courts, which the judicial branch is a co-equal branch of government with the executive and the legislative. And then the other is through impeachment. But the president would have to be guilty of high crimes and misdemeanors to be impeached. And so the threshold is different there. So although Congress does have the ability to hold the president accountable in that way, regular folks, local governments, state governments also have the ability to hold the president accountable in the courtroom. Judicial review.
Thank you for clarifying.
Okay,
that.
Mr. Menefee, it's Frank Billingsley. So where would this actually be settled? Would this go to the Supreme Court or a court lower than that?
Well, it's starting off in the Northern District of California. These types of cases, there's venue statutes throughout in the federal rules, but these types of cases can only be filed in certain places, depending on what it is you're complaining of. But it starts like any other case in a federal district court. This one is in the Northern District of California. From there, if there is an appeal, it would go up to the circuit court for the area. In California, that's the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. And then from there, it would go up to the U.S. Supreme Court if it was appealed. Now, one challenge we've seen is that the President of the United States, as well as the Vice President on Twitter, have really flirted with the idea of disregarding judicial orders. And in fact, in many of the other cases, the dozens of cases that have been filed against the Trump administration, they have tried to find ways around judicial orders, which violate the spirit of the order that's been issued by the judge. So this could find its way before the U.S. Supreme Court. Many of the other cases have or are about to, and so I suspect it will.
Well, in its simplest form, it sounds like it says, stop doing what you've been doing. And to your point, if he says, no, I'm not going to stop doing what I've been doing, I don't care who tells me to, what then?
Mm-hmm.
We find ourselves in a constitutional crisis if that happens.
Mm-hmm.
You know, our laws in this country are built on a major assumption, and that assumption is that every single person in the government is going to be acting in good faith, and that they're going to respect norms.
Then let me ask.
If we find ourselves, oh, sure, go ahead.
Let me ask you this then: is a constitutional crisis, if not doing what you're supposed to do, is that an impeachable offense? Is that then the solution?
Yeah, I would say so. I would say that the Trump administration has already potentially put themselves in how they have evaded and outright disobeyed district court judges, potentially in an impeachment situation. But you know, impeachment is a political process, and it's ultimately up to the folks in the House of Representatives and the U.S. Senate to convict. And so, you know, for any number of political reasons, they may decide not to do that. The first step always needs to be the courts. We have not yet in the history of this country seen a Supreme Court issue an order directing a president to do something or not to do something, and that president flat out refused to do so. So we'll see how this shakes out, but the court is the first check.
We're speaking with Harris County Attorney Christian Menefee, and our phone number here, if you want to join in the conversation, 713-440-8870. Christian, let me ask you another question. If you are successful with this lawsuit, what happens next? Is it a stop what you're doing, or is it a restoration of what's been removed already?
It's a stop what you're doing. So we're asking the court for injunctive relief to stop the president from the dismantling of these agencies and the mass laying off of these workers moving forward. The reason we're doing that is because there's already been some case law out there about a retroactive attempt to do things, and it's just more legally challenging. But more importantly, the deadline for federal employees and many agencies to accept the reduction in force offer that was made to them was just recently. It was just within the last few days. So that means that if not enough folks agree to leave their job to comport with the president's stated goal of reductions in force, there could be mass firing. And so that's what we're really trying to protect against, is those mass firings.
Mr. Menefee, I completely respect what you're doing and support it, and I admire your courage. But is there some concern that at the end of the day, we don't just make the administration mad and they get even more angry at us and we suffer even more of this problem?
That absolutely is a concern, but unfortunately, I don't think that we can, allow folks with autocratic tendencies to bully us into not taking action. Our democracy, though it's hundreds of years old, is very fragile, and it's the fights like these that ensure that we keep presidents, members of Congress, members of the judiciary in check. I don't think we can turn a blind eye to it. I think it's too important. And we've seen hundreds of thousands of folks who have already been pushed away from the federal government. It's wrong, and, I got into public office to address wrongs and to right wrongs, and that's exactly what we're doing here.
And this is the system we have set up to challenge these things, and that's why we have a court system. So I respect the moving forward. When people question what's happening federally or locally, this is what our courts are for. Last thing before I let you go, I'm sure you have looked ahead at the court where this is going to. How do the odds look? What are the jurists at that court level do you feel that they are going to go?
At the lower court level, we feel okay. One thing that gives us some level of confidence is that there are courts throughout the country who have pushed back on the Trump administration, who have told them that they're acting outside of the law. There have been scathing opinions written by judges who were appointed by Democratic presidents, judges who were appointed by Republican presidents. It hasn't really been a partisan thing. But unfortunately, I think many of us doubt the willingness of the United States Supreme Court to really step in and hold the president accountable. I hope that we are being too pessimistic on that, but thus far, I don't think we've seen a major instance of the Supreme Court really giving the president the reprimand that he has earned.
Well, thank you for joining us, sir, and keep up the good fight and let us know what happens.
All right, will do. Thank you very much.
That was Christian Menefee, the Harris County Attorney.
Well, I tell you what, he has his hands full, doesn't he?
It is. It's interesting to talk to him and to get a balanced legal. Balanced is in the fact that we understand the system and the process by which they are moving forward and what their belief is in this. And we're always interested in what you think, your feelings on this. Have they overstepped their bounds? Should they have done this sooner? Where do you fall on this whole issue? Call or text us at 713-440-8870.
Arnie, I think you brought up a good point about, is it just going to get caught up in the court? Is that what is just essentially going to happen?
Well, things are moving
eventually?
pretty quickly through the courts.
Right.
I mean, if the Supreme Court warrants it, they'll bring it right up to the Supreme Court if they feel like this is something they have to rule on.
And just to clarify, I don't think it's going to get caught up in the courts. I think it's got to get into the court systems, and then it will work through the court system. My bigger question is, shouldn't our elected officials in Congress be holding our president accountable? If we've got 3 equal branches of government, it seems as though we are not acknowledging Congress's role in this, and we're going right to the judiciary. That's all.
Agreed.
Coming up on Hello Houston, if you enjoy breathing clean air, you'll want to stick around. Jennifer Hadayia from Air Alliance Houston will join us to discuss why Houston's air quality has gone down and what we can do to improve it. Also, we love hearing your thoughts on today's topics. Give us a call, 713-440-8870. This is Hello Houston on News 88.7.
Oh, you want to make sneakers in the United States, do you?
The way that they developed just didn't work anymore. And that's one of the other big problems with shoes. Unlike cars, there's just new models constantly. And so it's really difficult to get machines that can just, but by the time you get your production line down, you're no longer producing that shoe anymore, basically.
I'm Kai Rizdal, just not the right fit. Next time on Marketplace.
You can listen to Marketplace coming up tonight at 6:30.
Support comes from Rice University's Master of Liberal Studies, designed to sharpen the critical thinking and research skills of working adults in a community of diverse, passionate learners. More at gls.rice.edu.
Support comes from the Houston Symphony, performing Beethoven's 7th Symphony with conductor Matthias Pincher. Plus, Cedric Tabergian performs Mozart's Piano Concerto No. 20, May 1st, 3rd, and 4th. Tickets at houstonsymphony.org.
Support comes from Signify Business Cash by Wells Fargo. With this business credit card, cardholders can earn rewards on business purchases with no caps or categories to track. Learn more at wellsfargo.com/signify. Terms apply.
Support comes from the Dan L. Duncan Comprehensive Cancer Center at Baylor St. Luke's Medical Center, offering comprehensive cancer care that is compassionate, personalized, and driven by clinical research. More at stlukeshealth.org/cancer.
Support for Houston Public Media comes from Chariot Energy, focused on delivering tailored electricity plans by time of day usage, offering residential electricity plans through its online portal. Details at chariotenergy.com. Tonight on Houston Public Media TV8. At 7, Nature travels to Niagara Falls. Then at 8 on Nova, filmmaker Stanley Nelson presents the 2-hour documentary Critical Condition: Health in Black America. Tonight on TV8.
And now back to Hello Houston. Join the conversation. Call now, 713-440-8870, or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. And now here's Ernie Manous, Celestia Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
I am trying to stay up on all the ways that we connect with our audience right now. You and Frank are much better at watching the YouTube feed go by too, and so I'm just loading that up so I can watch that. But besides the comments on YouTube, we have, of course, our calls, and we're getting our texts.
We are.
713-440-8870.
So on YouTube, Candy Torres said, my understanding, business is to run efficiently, government is to run effectively.
Oh, that's a good point.
I agreed with her. And then somebody said, Frank's in the chat. I'm like, of course, I'm sitting right here live. What do you think I'm doing?
And we are receiving those texts,
Yes.
and we want to thank y'all. Keep those coming. We received a text that says, the best way to streamline line, government is forced rankings. That keeps the best producers and cuts the non-productive employees. It's not perfect, but better than what is happening now. We also received another text, and I just want to clarify, we have your phone number, but I'm not going to read that on air.
Right. So put your name, sign it, give whatever handle you want for us to identify you with. You're going to read the next one?
The next text says, we are not cutting the most expensive government agencies or programs. Trump is slashing agencies and programs he disagrees with. And one of our latest texts says Trump has actually increased the deficit, even though he is bragging about cutting costs. That isn't his goal. He just wants to support debts that help him and his wealthy friends.
That is a point. Yes, please add your name to your text so we know who we're talking to.
And you can text us or call us at 713-440-8870. As a matter of fact, Robert from the Museum District is on the line.
Oh, thank you. I'm very concerned about this lawsuit because, Frank, you alluded to it, but we need to stress this. President Trump is very revengeful. He will never forget or forgive Houston. Now, Houston's the Democratic Party city, and we're $320 million in the red. He will do what he can to bankrupt us if he can. The governor of Texas hasn't called an election for Sylvester Turner. So the Republicans can drag their feet on us. And so I'm really concerned about city of Houston. Now, one more thing, I'll let you go. I'm seriously considering running for my House representative seat, which is not Sylvester Turner, because I think, as an American Independent Party, because we need a third choice here. The Democrats, Republicans are at each other's throat, and we as a country are in serious trouble.
Thank you, Roberto.
That's a good point.
You for calling. Remember, we're always interested in what you have to say. Give us a call, 713-440-8870, or text us. I have to put that into my vernacular.
Last week, the American Lung Association put out its yearly State of the Air report. A key finding, nearly half of the U.S. population lives with unhealthy levels of air pollution. According to the report, 25 million more people are breathing unhealthy air compared to last year. Another key finding, Houston's air quality is worse compared to last year. Last year, the report found that Houston was the 10th most polluted city for ozone and the 16th most polluted city for annual particulate matter. This year, we are now the 7th most polluted city for ozone and the 8th most polluted city for annual particulate matter, following the nationwide trend that air quality around the country is only getting worse. To break down the key findings and help us to better understand this report, we welcome Jennifer Hadayia, the Executive Director of Air Alliance Houston. Jennifer, welcome to Hello Houston.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. Did you breathe well on your way in?
Oh, I breathed as well as I could. It's very windy outside,
That helps.
There's actually, yes, that wind can help, wind can hurt. It is a consideration for air quality in Houston, no doubt.
So the purpose of this ranking and this report started back in 2000, right? The American Lung Association wanted
over 25 years.
people to better understand, credible science data that's put out by the EPA. We have the data, but why are we trending backwards?
There are so many answers to that. One of them, of course, is what I was saying before, our weather patterns. And bear with me as I walk through this a little bit. We know that ozone is a combination of two things. It takes air pollution and it takes heat. And when it combines, you get ozone, which has significant impacts for public health. It contributes to virtually all health problems that we experience, cardiac, respiratory, otherwise. We are in an era of extreme heat. Every year in Houston, I predict, you can come back to me in the future and see if this worked out, that every year from now on will be the hottest year on record. That's going to be the norm. So combine that with the ozone-causing air pollutants, and we can talk about the sources of those ozone-causing air pollutants. You now have increases in ozone. And so the increase in heat, the record heat levels that we're seeing, not only in other parts of the country, but certainly in Houston, are going to push that ozone level up. So some of that is our weather-related pattern. But what causes the heat pattern to happen in the first place? Why are we seeing record heat levels? And that has to do with what's being emitted. What pollutes the air warms the climate. And so what's also being polluted is contributing to increase in heat, increase in heat combined with what's being polluted means we are continuing to have ozone, and that's a vicious cycle. The other source is particulate matter, which is soot pollution. It's the fine particles that come from a number of sources. They come off of the tires that we drive on. And so when you're in a city like Houston, which has significant sprawl, significant transportation, significant numbers of increasing cars and trucks and trains out there moving people and goods across the region, you see more particulate matter as well. We have also had some extreme situations in the last year in terms of disaster events in the local area. Weather events contribute to some of this as well. We had a pipeline fire burn for days. We had leaks at one of the facilities along the ship channel. All of those things contribute to air pollution.
Yeah, don't forget African dust.
Yes, so the African dust does happen on a seasonal basis, and that's where wind hurts us, right? So Houston is almost a perfect storm in terms of the wind pattern. So wind usually comes up and over from the Gulf of
Mexico.
What should I call
The
it?
Gulf.
Well,
no, we're just talking
Gulf.
about that.
The
The
Gulf.
Gulf. Thank
The
you.
Gulf of
Up,
America.
over,
We're following
listening to the
federal
first story.
guidelines. It is the Gulf of America.
Up, off the Gulf, and that blows. You caught me there.
It's a Mexican-American Gulf.
I don't know. Gulf of Texas. There you go. That blows dust into the Houston area. So it's almost a perfect storm for that as well. But that it doesn't happen enough or year long to be the reason why our annual particulate matter levels are going down or getting worse.
You explained this very well, but we were talking about this the other day. As I understand it, sodium dioxide, sulfur dioxides, and nitrous dioxides, the heat, as you said, the sun, doesn't happen at night.
Heats it up.
The sun heats it up, breaks them apart, and you get SO and O. And NO and O. And it's that singular O that finds an oxygen molecule, and now they have a three-way. So you have two O's and another O, and they don't like to be like that. So ozone doesn't really last that long. It goes and finds another O to be in a couple. So ozone is a great marker. It's a great marker for pollution. But ozone in and of itself is not the pollutant. It's the sulfur dioxide and the nitrous dioxide. It's the emissions.
In the combination with heat.
But it tells you, it's kind of like saying, hey, we have a problem. It's like a sunburn. It's the sunburn isn't what got you; it's the sun that got you.
And I will say, it's the, to use another metaphor, it's the canary in the coal mine of air pollutants across the region and writ large. Because what the sources that put out what we call ozone precursors, NOx and SOx, that's our terminology for it. Knocks your socks off with heat and turns into ozone. Those sources also produce other kinds of pollutants that are also concerning. They also tend to produce the particulate matter, which, in my personal opinion, is the most concerning for public health. Talk about that if you'd like, but also in some cases emits cancer causers. There are air toxins that are known carcinogens. And when those get emitted into the air and people breathe them, even for short term and certainly for long term, they contribute to cancer rates. And we are seeing now at least 2 cancer clusters that have been happening in the Houston-Harris County area, one related to soil pollution, but another related to Superfund pollution. All of those sources of toxins enter the air, into the water, into the soil, and affect public health.
Let me ask you one question on ozone, then we'll move off ozone question. I come from a time of always hearing about the ozone layer being broken down, how bad that was for us to lose ozone, but also the things like hairspray and those were breaking up the ozone. So
yes. I think I came from the same generation.
Okay,
so I remember when
when
hairspray was our villain.
Aquanet.
Yes,
Aquanet.
It's a different ozone.
Yeah, right, Church.
Okay.
So
that makes
there's
it easy
an
to
ozone
understand.
layer that protects us from the rays of the sun.
Right. So that's
and then
the good ozone.
That's the good ozone. We don't want holes in, and so we stopped using the Aquanet. And that the holes in the ozone layer have been somewhat. This is lower level non-atmospheric ozone that you are breathing. You are not breathing the ozone layer above the earth. You're breathing what's in the air at breathable level.
Just for clarification for those
no,
of us
I came from that same generation. Not going to give out our ages, but yes, I know what you're talking about.
So we've obviously talked a lot about how the trends are moving. We've obviously, now we understand the risk that you've mentioned. Children are at high risk, elderly people. What is next? What do we do? We have the data, we have the information. We've been collecting it for a long time.
And let me make a point.
Yeah.
A lot of this, as you said, is heat and sun. So you see California, Arizona, Texas, we get
We're
a lot of
high
sun.
numbers.
We get a lot of
Yes.
sun. We can't do anything about the sun that we get. I mean, New York City has a lot of cars. They have a lot of pollution. They don't get as much sun. So it looks like their air pollution might be less than ours, but it might not really be less than ours.
Well, what they don't have in New York City, although they do have in Central Valley of California, is the industrial build out that Houston has. We are the energy capital of the world for a reason. And it is a fact of our fossil fuel lifestyles that energy produces air pollution. It's just a fact. No one denies that fact. And unless you have an energy capital of the world, everywhere else, you won't see the levels of pollution that Houston will always have. That the two primary sources of air pollution in the Houston area are your industry sources up and down the ship channel primarily, and your transportation. Everywhere may have transportation, right? Especially a bigger city like New York City or Los Angeles County, but they don't all have the industrial sources that Houston has.
I just want to remind everyone we're talking with Jennifer Hadayia, the Executive Director of Air Alliance Houston, about our clean air or lack thereof. Give us a call or text us 713-440-8870 for your questions, comments, and thoughts on this.
It's interesting that y'all mentioned New York and things, but on the list was Colorado. In the 25 cities most populated by ozone, I noticed that Colorado had multiple times. And when we think of Colorado, that's right, this one, and I have it highlighted as well. When we
For
think
those
about
watching at home.
Colorado, yeah, right there, we think fresh air, open mountains, but yet they're on the list. In fact, they're number 6. Houston, Pasadena area is number 7. How do you explain that?
Oh, there's a special word for it.
Quickly.
I'm looking across the table.
She was going for, but.
No. Quickly, the word. It's the geography of the Denver area. They're in a valley. They're in a bowl. Things get caught there. There's probably a fancy word for that I don't know what it is, but that's one of the explanations. So pollution gets caught in the valley and it doesn't blow itself out.
And let me make one more point, because you scale it by color. And I'm just going to use numbers. So
Sure.
Let's say it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 being the worst. And then you scale it and you say, well, they have a 1 every single day, so they have a 5. And they have a 2 and a 3, but just 2 days of the week. And they also have a 5. I'd rather have a 1 every day than a 2 and a 3. And you can play that game all day. That the way this scale works is, because I know Los Angeles, we never really get to purple here. We get orange a lot.
Twice, yeah.
We get orange a lot, unhealthy for sensitive groups. Well, occasionally we'll get above that, unhealthy for everybody. And very rarely do we get everybody stay inside. Where LA gets everybody stay inside more frequently, but yet they may not come across as polluted as we are. So the scale to me is a little, I push back a little on the scale. Saying that, I don't have a solution to that.
Sure. There's more than one way to rate the air, for lack of a better term. The way that this report rates it, and I'm not American Lung Association, so I can't say either way the methodology. It's their report and their methodology, but they use the action days.
That's the way it's always been done.
Right. There are other ways to measure our air quality, and it's through the Environmental Protection Agency's way, and it's through a process called attainment or non-attainment, and it's based on a national standard. You'll see some of that here, but a more, I guess, flat way to assess air quality is to take what is the standard for ozone, what is the standard for particulate matter, and over an entire year, looking at all your data aggregated for a year, are you above it, are you at it, or are you below it? We have been in severe non-attainment for ozone since the national standard for ozone was adopted. We have an ozone problem. It's why my organization was founded. Spoiler alert, we're still working on ozone. Particulate matter is going through some changes. You asked earlier, what are some things that can be done? Well, one thing that can be done is to have a public health protective standard. And we're having a debate about that right now when it comes to particulate matter. Again, I said earlier, teased it, one of the most concerning air pollutants in my opinion. It affects every system in the body. It's tiny particles that get absorbed into the bloodstream, into the lungs, into the tissues of the body. There's some connections to virtually every chronic disease and exposure to particulate matter, even short term. And the debate right now is, what is a healthy level of particulate matter for you to breathe? The Environmental Protection Agency said last year that it was 9 micrograms per cubic meter, whatever, it's 9. The current administration is pushing back on that, is saying we don't want to make the standard stricter. We want to leave it where it is, which is 12. The World Health Organization says it should be 4. So one of the solutions is to have a more protective standard, which then dictates permits, it dictates regulations. A shout out to our incredible Harris County attorney. It dictates fines and lawsuits that can be levied and issued against those that exceed the limit. If your limit is higher, then we're saying you have permission to pollute more. If the limit is lower and it's more protective, then we're saying you have to pull your operations into accountability and protect the public's health.
Now, Jennifer, yesterday, speaking of the EPA, multiple reports are saying the EPA is canceling almost 800 environmental justice grants based on court filings. How will Harris County be impacted and affected?
So full disclosure, Airlines Houston has one of these grants. And as of right now, our funding has not been canceled. It is a day-to-day. I log into my system literally every morning. I did it this morning, and I hold my breath. Sure. Right now, our grant is still active, and it is a grant to encourage public awareness of things like regulations, protections, and permitting. I am very hopeful that our grant will continue and we'll be able to do that good work. But ours is not the only one. Those that I'm aware of total about $67 million in the state of Texas, and there are some other organizations in Houston that have been selected for those funds. That's a loss to the Texas economy, of course, but more importantly, I think it's a loss to the good work that all of us, my partners and others, were doing to improve environmental and public health in Houston. They're not all focused on air pollution. Ours happens to be, but some of our partners were going to work on things like solar farms, and they were going to do workforce development for a green economy. And if those grants end up going away, it will be a loss to communities that have been desperately in need of those changes.
Jennifer Hadayia is the executive director of Air Alliance Houston.
Still today.
Still
today.
Not holding my breath.
Today. And I do want to just point one thing out. There were 3 key categories: ozone rankings, PM ranking, annual PM ranking. 27 counties were listed who received failing grades on all 3 measures. Harris County was not on that list. What are we getting right?
We're getting right what's called, kind of to what Frank was saying before, one of those measures is daily particulate matter. So what happens on a day-to-day level. We were not given an F on the daily ranking, but we were given a C. So we're not quite we're not graduating cum laude on that one.
Again, Jennifer Hadayia, thank you so much for joining us today on Hello Houston.
Absolutely. Thank y'all for having me.
Thank you.
Coming up, we will talk with Alan Mingo Jr. about starring in the musical fantasy The Wiz as Hello Houston continues. Stay with us.
I'm Jeremy Hobson. Next time on The Middle, it's no secret that the United States has an abundance of wealth and resources compared to other countries. But in his new book with Ezra Klein, journalist Derek Thompson explores why such a rich nation is so far behind on things like affordable housing, infrastructure, and climate action, and what both parties need to do to change course. Derek Thompson, next time on The Middle.
You can hear The Middle coming up Thursday night at 8 o'clock.
We believe in your right to free information. Help protect trusted news that keeps us all informed by supporting Houston Public Media. Stand up for your right to information. Give today at houstonpublicmedia.org or call 888-909-0887.
Support comes from Texas Mutual Insurance Company, committed to strengthening the state's workforce and its communities through safety and wellness grants and education initiatives. More at texasmutual.com/community impact. Support comes from GenPro, a Houston-based home generator service providing power to homes during unexpected outages, helping with connectivity and productivity. More information is available at genpro.com. Support comes from UT Health Houston, home to Dr. Ramesha Papana and the Fetal Center team, who pioneered a prenatal patch to help babies with spina bifida walk earlier and better. More at uth.edu/manyfaces. Support comes from the Houston Zoo, presenting its annual Feast with the Beasts. Cuisine from a number of Houston's diverse eateries, animal experiences, live music, and more. May 2nd. More at houstonzoo.org. Support comes from GiveMeTheVIN.com. Purchasing vehicles in minutes with the VIN or license plate, or by bringing the vehicle to Houston area offices. Details at GiveMeTheVIN.com.
And now back to Hello Houston. To comment on any of today's topics, call 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. Now back to Ernie Manous, Celeste Diaz-Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
The Tony Award-winning musical The Wiz took the world by storm when it premiered on Broadway. I can't believe this. In 1975.
By storm, by tornado.
Oh, by tornado. Took the world by tornado. This retelling, if you don't know it, of The Wizard of Oz, traditionally performed by an all-black cast, is known for its iconic score filled with soul, gospel, rock, and funk, and also a late 70s movie. We're not going to talk about that. It's back touring across America for the first time in 40 years. The musical's national tour is currently on stage at the Hobby Center for the Performing Arts through Sunday, May 4th. With us now to tell us all about The Wiz is The Wiz himself, Alan Mingo Jr. Hello there, Alan.
Hello, how's it going?
It is going great. I was watching the show last night. I was there in the theater with you all, and I was thinking to myself, I think this is the 6th time I have seen The Wiz live on stage, including a revival with Stephanie Mills, who originated the role of Dorothy back in the 70s. And Hinton Battle was on one of our shows years ago, and all I could talk to him about was playing the Scarecrow. I am thrilled to have you here with us, and The Wiz is a wow.
Oh, thank you for coming last night.
It's great. It's this new production of it. And for folks that don't know, it's been the script has been updated slightly with the help of Amber Ruffin, who we know from Late Night with Seth Meyers, which gives a little edge to the script that makes it a lot more fun. Your first encounter with The Wiz was when?
Well, I saw the movie. Usually people are introduced either through the Broadway version like you, but mine was the movie. I had no idea the Broadway version was
Oh,
out there.
really?
No. And so actually when I got to college and I auditioned for The Wiz, I wound up getting the Yellow Brick Road. And I said, what in the heck is that? Like, am I playing a tree? I get to college to major in acting and I'm playing a road? So that's when I understood that there were two different versions.
Yeah.
And with our version, we wind up doing a little bit of both. We took a lot of things from the movie, and we took a lot of things from the Broadway show and blended them together, which is why I'm so proud of bringing this around the country on its 50th year anniversary.
Oh, my, I didn't do the math. 50 years. That's amazing. It's been around that long.
50 years. And because there's such fans on each side, that's why we blended it.
Well, you did a beautiful merge of the two, and you've got a couple of the numbers that were made for the film, which are seamlessly folded into the Broadway show. Yeah. I really
You caught that though. I'm glad you did.
Oh yeah, I'm a big fan of this program. I'm curious though your thoughts and feelings, and as you play the character of the Wiz, the Wizard, do you look at Wicked, and does that the storyline that they're sharing there give you a different slant on how to play this character, or do you totally ignore that canon?
Okay, I want to watch that, but I don't want to get anyone sending me messages. I have not seen Wicked.
Really?
You brave soul to admit
That's
that.
my guess.
For you.
I saw the original Broadway show when it came out years ago, but I have not seen the new version of Wicked. I will. But for me, this is my third time doing The Wiz that was supposed to go to Broadway. The third one actually won. The other two, we were trying to take out the slang. The other one, we tried to do very classical. So I'm very well versed in what was done in the movie and what was done originally on Broadway.
Hey, Alan,
those were my prototypes.
I'll help you out, Alan. It's Frank Billingsley. I did see Wicked, and I didn't like it. So I'm the only person that didn't like it in America.
Alan, good news. Alan, good news. No one's. I was going to say, Alan, good news. No one's going to be writing to you now. They're all going to be writing to Frank about that one.
Perfect. Thank you for that.
I'm curious too, when you take take on a role like the Wiz? Who is he to you?
Well, it really depends on the script. So, I didn't realize there was a new script until the first day of rehearsal.
Oh.
I was prepared with all of my lines memorized from the old version of The Wiz, the classic version. It wasn't until I got into rehearsal that someone says, someone told me, did you read the new script? And I lost my mind. I went home and read the new script, and I'm sort of a musical purist.
Mm-hmm.
So I got a little upset. So there's some detailed conversations me and the director and the writer were having about why are we playing The Wiz this way.
Yeah.
So I had to sort of create a character for the words that were written, which would make it easier for me because now I wasn't saying the same words as Andres the Shield. I was literally creating something of my own. And the director wanted to make this version for her two young women. She didn't want adults entering into Dorothy's life, always giving them the answer.
Uh-huh.
Sometimes adults will promise something and then they don't follow through. So with my Wiz, there's no redeeming quality. He literally asked them to kill a witch. And then when they come back and say, hey, we come back to get what you promised, he's like, well, I'm out of here.
Yeah.
Goodbye. Thanks for helping me out.
And I know people are going to wonder about the changes that there are in it. Frank is even asking me about that. And it's more that it updates. I mean, I'm a purist like you are, and it didn't bother me. Usually it bothers me when people rework a book. But this was done, I thought, in a very sensitive, thoughtful way, except for kill the witch, not bring me her broom. You want her killed. And then Dorothy's like, all right, I'll go murder her.
I'll do it.
That was interesting.
It's a little strong.
It
We're
is.
to ask a little girl, how old is Dorothy supposed to be in this whole thing? Like 10 or 11 or 12? I mean, old enough to run away from home, but young enough to, I don't know.
They made her more of a teenager-ish, but you're right. She just... Okay, I'll go kill the witch.
I'll just end up in juvie.
Unfortunately, I'm going to have to kill this segment only because we're getting to the top of the hour. I think I know you got to get going because you're the Wiz. But love the show. Happy you folks are here in town with it. And I hope everyone gets a chance to see it. It's a nice retelling of a story you may be extremely familiar with, but you bring some new, interesting things out in the show that I think will open it up to a new audience yet again.
Thank you so much. That's our hope.
Thank you very much, Alan. Alan Mingo Jr., who's playing The Wiz. I want to mention on YouTube, we did get some comments. Brett Cullum wrote, oh, yeah, The Wiz is coming on. Richard Pryor was amazing as The Wiz, but boy, he couldn't sing. That's our Wiz comment.
Hey, this is an interesting text that we got from Mark Thorson. Ooh. The name change of the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America is laughable. Motivated by egotism and isolationism, the name will before long revert to what it's been for hundreds of years. Parenthetically, I'm a retired mariner who has spent nearly his entire working life on the sea as a captain of research and other vessels. So that's an opinion with a little bit of oomph to it, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to go into our next hour. Are you ready?
That's right. Are you guys ready? Coming up on Hello Houston, we'll discuss a landmark antitrust case involving Google with UH law professor Nikolas Guggenberger. Also, a baby bald eagle, our national bird, was successfully rehabilitated and is back in the wild. The Houston SPCA Wildlife will tell us all about it. This is Hello Houston on News 88.7. Stay with us.
Stay tuned. There's more Hello Houston on the way with Ernie Manous, Celestia Sherman, and Frank Billingsley. For the latest in local news, subscribe to the Hello Houston daily newsletter at houstonpublicmedia.org. Hello Houston is a production of Houston Public Media. The opinions expressed by the guests of this program are solely their own and do not represent the views of management, staff, or underwriters of Houston Public Media. This is News 88.7.
Support for Houston Public Media comes from Chariot Energy, leveraging technology to serve Texas electricity consumers with a variety of plan types and term lengths tailored for homes and businesses. Details at chariotenergy.com.
At All Things Considered, what unites all our conversations is curiosity.
Is he a good hugger?
Whether we're speaking to an aid worker,
what would you want them to know or understand about what you all are dealing with?
A scientist,
but what's in it for the dolphins?
Or a foreign leader.
If I may, I will ask the questions.
Killed by the Israeli
I
police.
will ask the questions.
Questions and answers every day on All Things Considered from NPR News.
All Things Considered, weekdays beginning at 3 p.m. on News 88.7.
We have a chance of showers today, breezy. We're going to get up to around 82. It's 80, and this is your NPR station, KUHF, Houston. News 88.7, a service of the University of Houston.
Just ahead on this hour of Hello Houston, we continue diving into the top stories of the day. Senate Bill 1637 exempts law enforcement officers from being charged with deadly conduct for actions taken in the line of duty. I'm Frank Billingsley.
And I'm Celestia Sherman. Then we'll discuss with Nikolas Guggenberger, Assistant Professor of Law at the University of Houston Law Center, about Google's antitrust lawsuit.
And I'm Ernie Manous. Plus, we'll discuss wildlife rehabilitation with the director of the Houston SPCA's Wildlife Center.
Also, we want to know your thoughts, so give us a call at 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. You can also watch us on our YouTube channel. Just go to houstonpublicmedia.org and click the big orange banner.
Hello Houston is made possible in part by founding sponsors John Bradshaw and Kathy Sanders, and by gifts from listeners like you.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Lakshmi Singh. President Trump is seeking to distance himself from data that show the U.S. economy contracted in the first quarter, telling his cabinet today.
That's Biden. That's not Trump, because we came in on January, this is the quarterly numbers, and we came in and I was very against everything that Biden was doing in terms of the economy, destroying our country.
As Trump blames his predecessor for the 0.3% decline, NPR's Scott Horsley reports the data point to Trump's tariffs.
That drop was largely driven by a surge of imports as businesses and consumers raced to stock up before the president's tariffs took effect. Imports are a negative for GDP. Personal spending, which is the biggest driver of economic activity, grew less than half as fast as during the previous quarter. Other economic scorecards are also flashing warning signs. The S&P 500 index is down sharply since Inauguration Day, and consumer confidence has fallen to its lowest level since the start of the pandemic. Scott Horsley, NPR News, Washington.
Columbia University student Mohsen Madawi, who was arrested and detained by masked immigration agents in Vermont earlier this month, has been released from detention in New Orleans while his case is pending. Here's NPR's Sergio Martinez Beltran.
Madawi was one of the leaders of the protests at Columbia University against the war in Gaza. He has been accused by the Trump administration of undermining its effort to combat anti-Semitism and was arrested earlier this month by immigration agents after finalizing his naturalization interview in Vermont. Federal Judge Jeffrey Crawford said Monday Madawi's 2-week detention, quote, so far demonstrates great harm to a person who has been charged with no crime. So he ordered his immediate release. Madawi said his release sends a message that, quote, we the people will hold the Constitution accountable for the principles and values that we believe in. And he told the Trump administration he's not afraid of them because fear is replaced by love. Sergio Martinez Beltran, NPR News.
The U.S. and Ukraine are set to sign a comprehensive deal to jointly invest in Ukraine's mineral, raw materials, and natural resources wealth in exchange for future U.S. aid. More from NPR's Joanna Kakissis.
Ukrainian Prime Minister Denis Shmyhal says the country's lead negotiator for the deal, Economy Minister Yulia Svidenko, is on her way to Washington for the signing. The investment fund would be a 50-50 partnership with the U.S. and would assist in Ukraine's reconstruction. Shmyhal said the American side can count new, and I repeat, new military aid to Ukraine as a contribution to this fund. The Trump administration had initially pushed a deal that would have given Ukraine very little while trying to recoup money for military aid the U.S. has already given Ukraine. Joanna Kakissis, NPR News, Kyiv.
U.S. stocks still trading lower with the Dow down more than 200 points. This is NPR News.
Live from News 88.7 in Houston, I'm Gabrielle Dawkins. Houston ISD is a couple months away from its deadline to finalize next school year's budget. Superintendent Mike Miles says some tough decisions are ahead. As News 88.7's Colleen de Guzman reports, the district is looking into cuts to its central office.
According to early budget drafts, every department of the district's central office is expected to have smaller budgets next year. The Public Affairs and Communications Department may receive $4 million less. The IT department may be cut by $3 million. The largest cut may be to the Chief of Schools office of nearly $10 million. Miles says that's to level out central staff to teachers, because a year ago, the district cut 800 teachers.
We still didn't cut the Chief of Schools central staff. So the divisions were staffed at a higher rate than usual.
Miles told the Board of Managers that cuts to the central office may add up to nearly $25 million. I'm Colleen de Guzman, News 88.7.
3 workers at an LNG facility under construction in Port Arthur are dead. 2 others are seriously injured after a scaffold collapsed early Tuesday morning. News 88.7's Tom Perumian reports.
Broadcast reports say the scaffold gave way around 2 a.m. at Port Arthur LNG. Justice of the Peace Ben Collins Sr. told Fox 4 News a 41-year-old man from Houston died at the hospital around 3:30 a.m. The scaffold broke loose from the side of an LNG tank that was under construction. 2 other men were injured but were able to hang on to the dangling scaffold. Jefferson County sheriffs and OSHA are on scene conducting investigations. Port Arthur LNG is a $13 billion project between ConocoPhillips and Sempra Energy and being built by Bechtel. It's scheduled to open in stages in 2027 and 2028. I'm Tom Perumian, News 88.7.
It's currently 82 degrees, mostly cloudy on the UH campus. I'm Gabrielle Dawkins, News 88.7.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Fisher Investments. As a fiduciary, Fisher Investments is obligated to act in their client's best interest. Learn more at FisherInvestments.com. Investing in securities involves the risk of loss. This is NPR.
Live from Houston Public Media and News 88.7, it's Hello Houston, an open forum on today's biggest stories affecting Houston and beyond. Call now, 713-440-8870, or let us know your thoughts on today's topics by emailing us at talk@hellohouston.org. And now here's your host for Hello Houston, Ernie Manous, Celestia Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
It's the noon hour of Hello Houston.
Hello, Houston.
I usually say Happy Wednesday.
Well, Ernie hasn't said Hump Day the whole hour.
A whole
I'm
hour.
trying to be good today.
Well,
I say it every. Well, I say it every
every
week,
week.
and I don't want to be redundant. I did get a comment that said that I am repetitive.
Oh,
and
really?
So, not that I pay attention to comments, but I did see that, so I'm trying not to be repetitive. If I've mentioned this before, please excuse it. Anyway, I will be redundant in this. We're live on YouTube. You can watch us. You can join the chatter over there. People are commenting all the time. Frank's got a comment right there on the YouTube.
I'm a civil engineering student. This is Jason Moran. I'm a civil engineering student at U of H. I really appreciated the segment with Air Alliance Houston. We're doing a project with the data that they collected from Winter Storm Elliott. Great job, guys.
And thank you for that comment, Jason. I bring that up to show there is a conversation going on over at our YouTube channel. Oh, yeah. You can get there by going to youtube.com and then checking for the Houston Public Media channel, or just make it easy. Go to hellohouston.org and you can find us there. Click the orange button. It'll take you there. What else do I want to tell you? You can call us and you can text us at 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. We were talking about the Gulf of something.
Yes, the Gulf.
The Gulf.
Do you know? Do people even know what a Gulf is?
The Gulf
versus a bay, versus a sea, versus an ocean. I mean, I'm just going
I've
to put that out
gotten
there.
in trouble.
I'll let people Google it and get back to me.
I've
Large
gotten in
body of
trouble
water.
by people here for always making it sound like the game that you do in a big field.
The Gulf of Mexico?
From my northern upbringing, and so I'm not going to say. But anyway, I've got a point about that, and then we're going to go to some points other people have. My point is, in all honesty, we're the United States. We are not America. America is the continent.
Correct.
So if you call it the Gulf of America, that actually technically works. It's not the Gulf of the United States. That's why I think those Make America Great Again hats don't make sense. It's Make the United States Great Again.
Right. Central
That's our
America,
country.
South America,
Right. There's a
North
lot of
America.
Americas.
We did have an off-air comment about the Gulf of Mexico from Cynthia from West Houston. She says, I agree with the point that it's been the Gulf of Mexico since 1550, and it should stay that way. There you go. Shoot us a text.
That's the text, 713-440-8870. Stephen, I believe, is on the line from West Side. Stephen, do you have a comment for us?
Hello. Yes. Hi, Frank, Celeste,
Hello.
Ernie.
Hi, Stephen.
On the Gulf of Hi. In addition on the Gulf of Mexico, in addition to it being part of world history and our national history, it's also in our country and Western music. Bob McDill wrote Gulf Coast Highway, and Bob McDill has 31 number one hits. Gulf Coast Highway is one of the most beloved country and Western music songs ever written, sung by Emmylou Harris, among others, to great fame. And in there, it's he worked oil fields in the Gulf of Mexico, but this only thing we ever owned was this old house beside the road. They even got bluebonnets in that song. So maybe we can all get together and say, well, we love our country and Western music. What's the point of changing the name of the Gulf of Mexico?
Well, the point of
it's
changing
a great
is the whole
point.
problem.
Yeah. Thanks, Stephen, for that. Remember, we're monitoring our texts and we're inviting our calls at 713-440-8870. And Celeste is keeping an eye on the YouTube. What's up there now?
My British computer guy says, y'all need 3 hours of airtime.
No.
So much great content. Thank you for the great show.
There's not enough vitamins.
If he'll send
my
lunch,
British
I'll stay for 3 hours.
And is he yours only? Is he your Celeste British computer guy?
His handle says my British computer. Not mine. My British computer.
That's
Yes.
cute.
Okay. We have another one on there, too.
We do?
Yeah, another YouTube comment.
Gulf of Texas is a good idea. At least Texas is shared between Mexico and the USA.
What about the
says
Gulf
that.
of Cuba? Because Cuba is also part of the Gulf of Mexico, America. So why not the Gulf of Mexico, Gulf of Cuba, Gulf of America?
Let's complicate. The Gulf of Americas.
The Gulf. How about just the Gulf?
I've said this and I've said this before. Even though I can have a little bit of a rebellious streak in me, I am a rule follower. And if the president says it's now the Gulf of America, you call it the Gulf of America. At me, people.
All right, people are at you. Coming up this hour, we're also going to be talking about what's going on with Google and their antitrust lawsuit and so much more. But as always, we start off with the headlines. Celeste, begin.
That's right. Texas lawmakers are working toward more protection of police officers. Senate Bill 1637 would exempt law enforcement officers from being charged with deadly conduct for actions taken in the line of duty. The House gave preliminary approval of the Senate bill on Tuesday. On the one hand, the bill aims to strengthen protections for law enforcement officers. On the other hand, critics say the bill gives officers authority to act recklessly and use an unjustifiable amount of force while on duty. It's one of several pieces of legislation this session that aim to increase protections for police officers 5 years after Texans took to the streets to protest police violence. Do you agree with this bill, or does it give police too much authority without consequences? Give us a call or text 713-440-8870.
What do you think?
What do you think?
I would be interested to know if it's a deterrent, because if would-be criminals know that police have a lot more authority and are protected by using, more strength, more force, and are going to be protected, then they wouldn't commit crimes. But then a lot of crimes are committed when people are not in their right mind. They're either drunk or they're on drugs, and they do things that they shouldn't, but there are ways to handle that later. And, you get too much force, then you might hurt. You might hurt these people that aren't in their right mind. So it's a very slippery slope.
The deterrent idea, though, also goes. They talk about it with death penalty.
That
the
idea
idea and it hasn't
but
proven
do you think it
to
works
work,
in education? Because when I was growing
what,
up,
you can give someone the death penalty.
No,
in
but when you and I were
now?
growing up, I think teachers had authority and coaches had authority.
They could paddle you.
Yes.
Well,
and I'm
we're not going to talk about.
I'm not going back to paddling,
abuse, but
it seems like, this is from the movies. But in the movies, it seems like kids are a lot more roughshod over the classroom than they used to be when we were growing up, and it's because a teacher can't even touch a kid.
Yeah, but I don't know. I don't believe I was ever touched by a teacher. I was never disciplined physically, but they did have a sense of authority in the room, and I think there was a certain amount of respect you had to authority figures that I don't think is around today, and I think that leads to a lot of trouble. We would never have sassed the teacher or talked back, and if we did, we knew we'd get in big trouble.
When we're looking at Senate Bill 1637, that would exempt law enforcement officers from being charged with deadly conduct for actions taken in the line of duty, I think that when we're looking at officers, firefighters, people that are out there, are first responders, we need to be supporting them. I don't think this is the way to support them. I think we need to be supporting them more instead of pulling back policy that could potentially be vulnerable for other people, criminal or not. We need to be supporting them with mental health, counseling, learning more sensitivity, ways to de-escalate. I'm not sure taking away consequences is the right way to move forward.
I'd be interested in what people think about this.
Yes, give us a call, 713-440-8870.
Yeah, this is a tough one.
This is a tough one.
If that's not enough for you to think and ponder about, we'll move on to another story that'll get you going. Texas voters will likely get a chance to decide whether to spend $3 billion in state funds on dementia research after the House preliminary approved Senate Joint Resolution 3 on Monday. Both chambers voted earlier this session to create a Dementia Prevention and Research Institute of Texas to study dementia, Alzheimer's disease, Parkinson's disease, and other brain conditions modeled after Texas Cancer Institute. The new initiative was a priority of Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick and received bipartisan support from most lawmakers. But it's not up to them whether taxpayer dollars can be used to fund this project. That decision will lie with you, the voters, who, after SJR 3 is finally approved by the House, will be asked at the next election whether you want to allocate $3 billion in general revenue to this work. What do you think? Would you vote for a state fund to go to this research? 713-440-8870.
Absolutely.
$3 billion?
I don't care what it takes. You know what? We've had so many people say that they should have been planning for Alzheimer's and saving for it all along because there are so few resources when you actually have a loved one that has it. It's hard. And if we could just fix it before it happens, and I've been to enough of these meetings where there really is hope that A, you can find a blood test that will give you an idea if you have markers for Alzheimer's, and B, if you do, you could take a pill a day to prevent it. And that could be in the next 5 to 10 years. But you cannot do it without research. That is what every doctor tells me. They have to have the money for the research to get there. You can't just hope for it on paper. You have to actually trial and error.
Right. I do want to clarify, though, I'm not sure exactly if there is actually a pill that will stop it. There are some that will delay it for a period of time.
It's just like taking a pill for cholesterol or taking a pill for high blood pressure.
But I believe they have a shelf life of how long they will.
I'm talking a pill that hasn't been invented yet.
Oh, okay, that pill.
That's why you need the research.
And
that's why you need the research.
Yes. We want to invite you to the conversation. You can give us a call at 713-440-8870. Michael's on the line from the Woodlands.
Hi, Michael.
How you doing there?
Good. What's up?
Well, I just like to make a comment on the bill for police officers.
Uh-huh.
I'm a former police officer. I was there for a while back in California. But my comment on that is that if we pass a law like that, there are a lot of excellent police officers, but there's some bad apples, and those bad apples could cause a big problem to society. Instead of helping society, it could go into a big, big problem. So definitely not. I am against that because when we have laws that protect us that way, to that extreme, some good cops might become bad cops.
Yeah, I get you. That sort of blanket immunity that if you're a cop, you could do whatever you think it takes to solve a problem. I agree. It could be. That's why it's a slippery slope.
Yeah. Michael, thank you for that call and for your comments on it. You called us at 713-440-8870, where you can also text us. Albert is on the line from Pearland. Albert, what's on your mind?
Well, I agree with the sentiments that the gentleman before me expressed. And as I'm very pro-police, most of the people in our community respect police officers and the dangerous job that they do. But they too need to be held accountable when these types of things happen. And more importantly, families need that closure. They need to know whether or not their loved one that was, injured or involved in those incidents, and sometimes that lost their life, if they had something to do with it, or if there was some type of excessive use of force involved.
That's
and
a very
the
good
way
point.
We're going to have a balance.
Yep.
Thank you very much for calling, Albert, and for sharing your thoughts and feelings on this topic. Again, the number to call or text 713-440-8870. I do want to jump back to the Alzheimer's story for just a moment and on the fund of $3 billion for it. What I wanted to comment was what gives me pause or hesitancy at this point is how would the money be used? How much will we respect in today's day and age the scientific research and the true findings? And how much, if this fund is being set up by a government agency, will there be political motivation behind it? That seems to be a problem we're facing across all these research grants now. And if it doesn't fit a particular agenda or point of view, will research be pointed a direct way with this money? That's the part where that gives me pause. Other than that, I think absolutely we need to be studying this. This touches my life. I know it's touched your life, Frank. Yep. It touches a lot of lives. It's touched yours. It's out there. It's rare that you would find anyone who doesn't have someone in their family that has suffered from this. And as we as a community all get older, more cases of this become recognized and identified. And it is horrific to watch family members fade in front of you. If there is something we could be doing, like the pill Frank is talking about, that one day would lead us to, if not a cure, but a preventative measure, I'm all for it. Spend the money. We waste a lot of money government-wise on a lot of things. Yeah. This is something that touches all of us.
And it would probably be $3 billion just to get it going, Ernie, because it is so expensive. It's going to be an ongoing, we need more, we need more, we need more.
Well, the beauty is there is a lot of this research happening in different institutions across, and maybe this money would help bring, especially just in Houston alone, in our medical center, bringing it all together so that they're in one place. That's my thought on that question. I'm curious your thoughts, 713-440-8870. Back to the cop message. Kristen from Houston is on the line. Kristen, what's on your mind?
Yes, my name is Dr. Kristen Clancy, and with a name like Clancy, you can imagine I come from a very long line of cops. I've been a police dispatcher myself. In every organization, you have bad apples, right? Mm-hmm. I don't want to comment on accountability, but I want to mention police departments are underfunded. They are undertrained. They don't have the support to protect their own mental health. And it leads to issues where people are being hired and not prepared for these jobs.
Yeah.
And that affects them, it affects their families, and it affects the people that they serve.
Yeah.
Well said. Thank you.
Kristen, thank you for calling. You reached out to us at 713-440-8870. I give that number repeatedly because you can call and also text us. And to put a little button on that, we appreciate the work. There are so many hardworking, fine, upstanding, the majority of our officers all fall into that category, and we show respect and appreciation for them every day. And I hope if you encounter them on the streets, you too show respect and appreciation for it. So thank you, and thank you, Kristen.
Yes, and now we are saddened to share that a member of our Houston public media family, Matt Thomas, one of our local and statewide anchors, passed away earlier this morning. Matt's father, mother, and sister were by his side. We just wanted to take a moment to recognize and pay our respects to Matt. He will be missed.
Houston Public Media brings to you PBS World, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on TV 8.6. Experience the personal connection behind the headlines with programming devoted to telling stories that humanize complex issues. PBS World helps us understand the movements, conflicts, and cultures that connect us all. PBS World on TV 8.6 and online at houstonpublicmedia.org.
Weeks ahead of extreme weather season in the U.S., the Trump administration canceled billions in weather disaster funding. The shift from federal to local leaves more people in small towns in harm's way.
Guys, this is dangerous. Our sewer plant is going to continue to overflow.
I'm Mary Louise Kelly, staying safe with less federal support on All Things Considered from NPR News.
You can hear it this afternoon at 3.
I'm Matt Hara, morning anchor here at Houston Public Media. HPM is the most reliable news station in Houston because we don't answer to anybody other than our audience. Our story selection process is rigorous, our editing process is rigorous, and we buy hard into the fact that one of our primary jobs here is to hold elected officials accountable. If I may say so, I think we have one of the best political reporters in the state in Andrew Schneider, and it's people like him, we have great people here that make our station go.
Support for Houston Public Media comes from the Holdsworth Center's Champions of Hope series, featuring 6 Texas education leaders who are uplifting their communities and leading with heart. More about their stories at holdsworthcenter.org.
Support comes from the Houston Zoo, presenting its annual Feast with the Beasts. Cuisine from a number of Houston's diverse eateries, animal experiences, live music, and more. May 2nd. More at houstonzoo.org.
And now back to Hello Houston. To comment on any of today's topics, call 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. And now here's Ernie Manous, Celestia Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
We often say, here I am being redundant again. We are a very busy show today. A lot of things are out there that we have been sharing with us, and Celeste, you've been monitoring over at the YouTube comments.
I have been monitoring the YouTube comments, and Brett Cullum says, here's the at you, Celeste. Law of the sea dictates that a country's sovereign territory extends only 12 nautical miles from the coastline. So renaming the entire body of water would not be official. And then I would like to read the comment from Frank Billingsley right afterwards that says, correct, Brett.
Brett, you are correct.
I think there's a Frank army out there
Thank
doing
you.
things.
And also we did receive a text, that's right, Ernie, from somebody who says, Texas should be proud to fund groundbreaking dementia research no matter the cost.
Yes, that was the other story we were talking about that people are interested in. Our phone number here, 713-440-8870. Leah from Bel Air is on the line also on this topic. Leah, what's on your mind?
Hello?
Hello. What's on your mind?
Hi. I think that I hope that the voters vote in overwhelming majority for this bill.
Mm-hmm.
And my reasons are manyfold. First of all, the impact of dementia and related diseases like stroke, which could cause dementia, and other things, are hundreds of billions of dollars in the United States. And $3 billion will go a long way towards doing research to help with prevention and coming up with therapeutics to address it. And then another reason is this. There was a gentleman that called in earlier saying that, there wouldn't be any controls on how this money is spent, and that is not so. There will be a rigorous grant process, so that the best ideas and to spend the money most efficiently with the greatest, with keeping the public in mind, that's where the money will go.
Well, from your lips to the purse strings ears, I hope that is true. That was my comment I was making about I'm in support of this happening. My fear is, as we're seeing with a lot of grants that are happening right now and the way money is being distributed and then being held to support certain agendas, I would hope that wouldn't be in this. I haven't read the bill closely enough to understand exactly how they are defining that or if they've even gotten to that point yet. But yes, I think we are in agreement, Leah, on this one that there's so much need for this to happen and we can do it. And so I hope we do. Thank you very much for your call and for joining us, as always, on all the topics we're talking about today. Call or text us at 713-440-8870. Now I'm going to add another topic into the hopper.
I know. We have a guest in the studio.
Earlier this month, the U.S. Department of Justice won its antitrust case against Google, which accused Google's parent company, Alphabet, of having a monopoly on online advertising. U.S. District Judge Brinkman wrote that the plaintiffs have proven that Google has willfully engaged in a series of anti-competitive acts to acquire and maintain monopoly power in the publisher ad server and the ad exchange markets for open web display advertising. We'll explain all that in a minute. For over a decade, Google has used its publisher ad server and its ad exchange together through contractual policies and technological interrogation, which enable the company to establish and protect its monopoly power in these two markets.
I know, really. This is a lot.
I know. You know what? I'm going to stop reading and I'm just going to introduce our guest. Nikolas Guggenberger is here with us. He's assistant professor of law at the University of Houston Law Center. Nikolas, welcome. Help me understand what I'm even reading here. What are the two cases? What is Google been found liable, guilty, whatever, of having done? And why is this important to us?
Well, first, thanks so much for having me. Really pleasure to speak with you. So this is the second win that the Department of Justice scored earlier this month. Last year, in the summer of last year, they already won a case in which they managed to establish that Google search was an illegal monopoly. And this case is ongoing. We're now in the stage at which the court has to decide over the appropriate remedy. This case is comparatively easy, and the basis is that the Department of Justice has alleged that Google search holds an illegal monopoly and has engaged in behavior that is illegal, that is to maintain that monopoly. Usually when we ask whether a monopoly is illegal, it's not sufficient to just say, oh, that firm has a lot of market share. We need to establish basically three things. We need to establish that that firm has a lot of market share. Google search does have a lot. Second, we need certain types of behavior that are deemed illegal. And third, that must cause some sort of harm. And the Justice Department was successful in establishing that last summer.
So to clear... Oh,
sorry. Well, I just was curious. You're talking about a firm having a large amount of market share, but we're talking about the internet. So what regulation is there around the internet that says you can't monopolize something like this?
This is generally applicable regulation. So this is the Sherman Act. The Sherman Act is over 100 years old, was passed in 1890. And it really applies to everything. It applies to all sectors of the industry. And the basic thing that this act does, that this old law does, it just prohibits you from further monopolizing a market. And that's it. And that's what Google was found guilty of.
I think a lot of people will listen to this, and if they're not familiar with the Sherman Act or the practices that Google did, what they understand or see is Google built a better product, and people flocked to it. And Netscape still exists out there. Yahoo is still out there. Google did it better, so they have a better share of the market. But that's not necessarily exactly what's going on here, right?
That's completely correct. I mean, Google was alleging we just have a better search product. That's why people come to us. And, at some point that might have been true. But the bottom line is that Google engaged in behavior to secure its position. It didn't just continue to innovate. It didn't just make its product better. What it did, it paid OEMs, that is the manufacturers of phones, to search engine, to put their search engine as a default on their phones. That is to say, if you buy an Apple phone, by default, you're getting Google as a search product. And Google is paying Apple billions and billions of dollars to gain that position. That's not a question of product quality. They're just paying to get a leg up.
But don't other apps do that? When you get a new phone, there are a lot of other apps, not just Google. Why are they not in trouble?
There are other apps, and now that connects back to the antitrust laws. You get in trouble if you do certain things only if you have already a strong market position. So here's Google that holds some 80-90% of the search market. And they go out there and they pay Apple to be the default search engine. Why do they do that? They do that to insulate themselves from competition. They do that such that they can secure and further their monopoly position. And that's what's illegal.
How is that different than if I buy a Microsoft laptop, and it has their brand search engine on it, and that's the default? How is this different?
So the big difference here is that Microsoft in the laptop market has a minuscule share. I don't know off the top of my head how much that share is. It's certainly not 80-90%. If Microsoft, however, had a market share in laptops of, say, 90% or 80%, that would be a problem. Yet it might still be a smaller problem, because what your example was about, it was about a company putting their own search engine on their own product, right? That might be a problem. But here what we have is Google paying another company to be the search engine. That's even more problematic.
What about like when you buy a car and it has Sirius XM in it? It's already preloaded there, and so they're pushing me toward this service. How is that? And I know this isn't the whole point of our conversation here, but I think for people to understand where these are very gray areas in some ways.
These absolutely are gray areas. So first we would need to look at what's the market share of Sirius XM. Again, off the top of my head, I don't know the numbers.
I can't think of another satellite radio service.
I think 100. Yeah. It might well be, and it might well be a problem. So then you have established that there is a high market share. You would further have established that they're making payments to get themselves a leg up, and now you would need to ask, well, does that in any way harm consumers? We would need to look at, does that impede innovation? Does that lead to higher prices, lower quality? Once we've made that assessment, maybe we have another antitrust case.
Well, I can tell you this. If you go to get a new computer, and you bring it home and you just sign onto your Gmail account, it loads your whole life into it. You don't have to worry about where did all my apps go and my shortcuts, and everything that was on my last computer automatically comes on there.
But you're signing into the Google
and
service.
And it's wonderful. And it's terrific. And let me tell you, I don't know what I downloaded. I don't know how this happened, but some kind of malware got in my computer and kept sending me to Yahoo as my search browser. And every time I went to, it was like, I kept deleting it and going to Chrome and deleting it. And finally I got rid of it. But they're all pretty tricky out there.
They are. And, those big companies, they use those arguments. So in the case, actually, in the ad tech case, the one that was just recently decided earlier this month, Google made that argument. Google made the argument to say, you know what, we may engage in certain behaviors that you think are problematic, but you know what, we have a good reason to do so. We protect consumers' privacy and cybersecurity. The court didn't buy that. They said, in this case, in the ad tech case, you're just using that as an excuse. You could do that in different ways. You don't need to engage in the type of practices that you have engaged in, tying, exclusive contracting, and so on. Apple made a similar argument in its antitrust regulation in its antitrust case that we haven't yet talked about, made the argument that we're just protecting your privacy. And again, the government and the courts have called them out and have said, you're just making that up as pretext.
We want to remind everybody that you can join the conversation at 713-440-8870. We're talking about the Google antitrust lawsuit currently with Nikolas Guggenberger.
I want to ask, you keep talking, there are two cases. This
Correct.
is one case, but you keep talking about it in regards to ad revenue, ad whatever you're calling it. Explain what that is and explain what the other case is too.
So the other case, the one where we got a decision earlier this month, is also a case brought by the Department of Justice. And here, what the Department of Justice claimed was that Google holds a monopoly over basically the entire advertisement infrastructure on the internet. The advertising infrastructure on the internet is incredibly complex. What you have to keep in mind that is every time we click on something, there are auctions running in the background on the back end that basically define what kind of ad I as a user end up seeing. And that whole stack, that whole technology in the background that requires ad exchanges, that requires advertising technology that connects all those ends.
But that keeps it free.
Well, yes.
To us.
Very good. Very good. Yes, that keeps it free for users. Now, what the Department of Justice claimed in this case was to say, actually, Google's monopoly means that less money ends up with publishers and radio stations and newspapers. Why? Because the middleman, Google, that basically controls almost the entire space that is between publishers and website providers. That makes it more expensive. They take a share that is way too large. Why can they take that? Because they hold a monopoly.
So let me just clarify too. What you're saying is Google theoretically is deciding what ads you're seeing, and they are the gatekeeper of that. And therefore, it's not a fair playing field for ads that people buy to put out to promote themselves because someone is deciding who gets access to them, and that's Google.
But aren't they saying?
That makes sense to me.
But aren't they saying, hey, I'm buying golf club ads. I want all the golf club people. Aren't they going to be sent to people that want golf club ads? So it's actually better for me? Isn't it better for me?
You mean personalized advertising?
Well, I mean, I want my golf club ad to go to golf club buyers.
Sure.
And Google will make sure that it does.
It does, but the thing is, it charges you a higher price, the Department of Justice has alleged, than you would have to pay if there were competition in the middle, if there were several ad exchanges that you could go to, if there were several providers that would compete with each other to best connect you to those, what was it, golf club potential customers.
Let me ask it this way then. So Frank is a golf enthusiast, and because of his searches and all of that, Google knows it. Celeste has a golf company. I have a golf company. We both buy ads, but I'm paying Google to push my ad to Frank, which pushes Celeste out of the business because she's not getting the eyes. Is that kind of what we're talking about?
Well, that you would probably always do. You would push her out. That's competition.
Right.
That part is fine. Here's what's problematic. Both Celeste and you have to go to Google. There is basically nobody else that you can go to. And because there's nobody else that could connect you to Frank, that's why Google can charge such a high price to you. And that is why so little money of what you're paying for the ad ends up with, say, the newspaper or the publisher that provides the content next to which the ad will be displayed.
Okay, so have there been any other antitrust lawsuits against tech companies in the past that have looked similar to this?
There have been several antitrust lawsuits, both in the U.S. as well as internationally. There's been a prominent lawsuit brought by the FTC against Facebook, and there have been lawsuits brought again by the government against Apple. And there have been private plaintiffs. One of the probably most prominent private plaintiffs has been the company Epic, the producer of various online games.
So just quickly, how does that inform what's happening here? What did we learn from those cases that impacted the decision here, or what Google's defense was here?
So some of the arguments are similar. To start with the second part of your question about the defenses, other companies are bringing similar defenses to the defenses that Google is bringing. They bring the defense of we are just securing privacy. They bring the defense of we're just the better provider. Facebook says we're just the best, largest social network. Apple says we are just the best, most secure ecosystem out there. Many of them argue that the defaults that they pay for or that they choose are actually not as powerful as the government is claiming. Some of them challenge the definitions of a market. Here's what's very important. If you want to assess a percentage of the market that a company dominates, well, what's that defined by? It's defined by how much of the market that company dominates, but it's also defined by how large the market is, right? Mm-hmm. So Amazon, for example, another one of the antitrust litigants, they have said, you know what, you shouldn't look at like online commerce platforms. What you should look at global commerce. And of course, if you put Amazon next to global commerce, it all of a sudden looks very, very small, right? We can learn more. We can learn about the various tactics that the government is using, the theories that they rely upon when making those arguments. In the early days, the government has sort of shied away from bringing lawsuits in these technology markets because they basically were operating upon the theory that those markets move so quickly, everything will shake out. We don't need to intervene. We don't need to do stuff. They moved away from that. They started to challenge markets that are called free markets, right? Advertising-funded markets. That's a little trickier than traditional markets where you have a market price. That's not like ads, but that is actual money. And they've moved beyond that. So yes, we can learn a lot from a lot of
Come
cases.
back, please come back. You make me wish I'd gone to law school.
I can tell you're not
come over.
passionate.
It's across the street.
I can tell you're not passionate about this at all. I can tell that.
Nikolas Guggenberger is an assistant professor of law at the University of Houston Law Center. Nikolas, again, thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Coming up, we'll talk to the director of the SPCA Wildlife Center about their animal rehabilitation program. Stay with us as Hello Houston continues.
Hi, I'm Craig Cohen, the host of Houston Matters. Join me weekday mornings at 9 or at your leisure on your podcast feed for your daily guide to the people, places, issues, and ideas that define Greater Houston. From politics to the economy, energy to the environment, healthcare to education to transportation and beyond. If it matters to Houston, it matters to us. Check us out wherever you get your podcasts or live on the air weekdays at 9 a.m. right here on News 88.7.
Hi, this is Matt Harrop. There's been a lot of news to cover in Houston over the last few months. Keep listening to Houston Public Media for the latest, and if you've got a car, truck, boat, or RV you don't need anymore, donate it to the station. It could be worth hundreds of dollars in support. The donation process is easy for you, and we'll pick up your vehicle in any condition. Here's how to get started. Go to houstonpublicmedia.org/cars to learn more. Thank you.
Support comes from Novotny & Company, offering commercial and residential property tax protests for 38 years. The deadline to file a protest is May 21st in Harris County. Info and online filing at novotnycompany.com. Support comes from Downtown Houston Plus, with new businesses like Tenfold Coffee Company, Meow Wolf, Barbacana, Punchline Comedy Club, and Bubble Boba. Details at downtownhouston.org.
Support comes from Cypress Creek Face, presenting Michael Cavanaugh in his singer-songwriter series, Saturday, May 17th, with hits from James Taylor, Paul Simon, and Billy Joel. Tickets at cypresscreekface.org.
Support comes from GiveMeTheVIN.com. Purchasing vehicles online with the VIN or license plate and photos, or by bringing the vehicle to Houston area offices. Details at GiveMeTheVIN.com.
And now back to Hello Houston. Call 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org to get your comment in on today's topics. Now back to Ernie Manous, Celeste Diaz-Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
I feel smarter after the last segment, but also really dumb after
A little
the last.
intimidating. Law is an intimidating subject.
It really is.
A couple comments that we got in. One, this is a great segment, but the other one was that your guest did a fantastic job of explaining it. And I
that
think
was on
that's
YouTube.
important. Yeah,
People watching us on YouTube, they're texting. Ruth from Cyprus on our cop story says, my fear is because cops already have guns, to give them more power would be something I would be against. Luis, however, from Baytown, says, I got pulled over by a cop and I was being rude to him because I thought I was being profiled, but he was being very flexible. If I were in his shoes, I would have arrested myself. There are good cops out there.
Interesting point. Jeff from Willow Bend made a comment on the dementia story. It's a great cause, but it's not a Texas problem. It's a national problem. So true. Maybe the federal government should reverse course and provide adequate funding in this research instead of at the state level. Agreed, but also we have the greatest medical center in the world right here, and we do have the Texas Cancer Project. I think as much as we're looking at that, we should also be looking at this. So I think it should work on both levels.
If we prove ourselves locally, it's a lot easier to get national funding. Say, look what we've done with $3 billion. We need another 3, and we're going to be this far.
Yeah.
So.
Good points. Thank you. Keep engaging. 713-440-8870.
As human population continues to increase, people and animals are also increasingly sharing landscapes. Just think about how we can watch one of the largest bat colonies in Texas right here under the Waugh Bridge in Houston. Also right here in Houston is one of the most comprehensive wildlife rehabilitation centers, which is the Houston SPCA's Wildlife Center, which serves more than 16,000 native wildlife animals annually. The center works to provide emergency life-saving care for injured, ill, and orphaned native wildlife, while also providing short-term and long-term rehabilitation with the goal of releasing their patients back to the wild. Recently, the Wildlife Center rehabilitated and successfully released a 4-year-old bald eagle back to the wild after it was rescued from the Natchez? How do you pronounce that, Frank? Natchez River last month.
I say Natchez. But
Natchez.
Yeah.
With us now to tell us more is Brooke Yahney, the director of Houston SPCA's Wildlife Center. Brooke, welcome to Hello Houston.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
It's great to have you with us. It is an amazing center. I've been out there. I've toured it. It's really awesome and so much more than I think people think when they think, oh, SPCA has a wildlife center. It is massive and amazing. How did you guys go from when you just were a startup to the largest in Texas?
Yeah, I mean, our executive director before me, she started out of her garage, out of her home. And that's how a lot of rehabilitators get started. And then they just kept getting more and more. I mean, obviously, Houston is one of the largest cities in the nation, so we have a large need for this. So it just kept getting bigger and bigger. And eventually the Houston SPCA was like, hey, we want to get involved in this. We're passionate about this as well. So they hooked up, and then it just grew and grew and grew from there.
And tell us how it works. This is Frank Billingsley. Good to see you. We've seen your facility a lot because every time we're about to go to dinner, there's a bird with a bad wing on the front lawn. We have to go get a shoebox. I'm like, Kevin, we're going to be late for dinner, aren't we? He's like, yes, we got to take it to the Wildlife Center. He has more birds named after him. So people can actually, if they see hurt animals, should they call you, or if they can safely get the animal to you? What's your advice?
It depends on the situation. If the animal is obviously injured, like if there's blood or flies or anything like that, they don't need to call. They can just safely grab the animal and bring it in. But if they're uncomfortable grabbing it, or if they're not sure if it's injured or not, then definitely give us a call. We have our staff on our hotline all day long, basically from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. basically. So we would love to help people walk through that process and make sure that the animal needs to come in, because a lot of times maybe it doesn't need to come in and they would just be rescuing it unnecessarily.
We're going to talk about a much bigger bird in just a minute, but to go back to the small bird story, we had an injured bird in our complex, and it was the weekend, and it was very hard to know what to do. And I think probably people encounter more injured animals over the weekends because they're out and about and they're aware of their surroundings.
Absolutely.
What should we do? Because if I remember correctly, you guys weren't open on the weekend.
We are open on the weekend. We're open every day from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m., even most holidays.
After 6, what do we do?
Yeah. So
I'll get you in a
6,
place like that.
You can, we do have a voicemail that's set up on our hotline that kind of walks you through the steps, but basically we tell people to, if you feel comfortable, safely gather the animal and put it in a quiet, dark place. We recommend not trying to feed it anything, because a lot of times people, even though they mean well, they can feed it the wrong thing or in the wrong way, and cause more issues than it had originally. So just put it in a quiet, dark place and bring it in the next morning. Or if it's a severe case and you live in Harris County, the SPCA also runs an injured animal ambulance that may be able to pick it up. So you can call the SPCA 24/7 if you're in Harris County and get that going. But if it's just a baby and it seems like it'll be fine, you can just keep it overnight, bring it in the next day.
Now, Brooke, we've mentioned a lot about birds, and you were talking about the different cases about how severe an animal might be injured. Now, we had a little tiny baby squirrel that just was on our porch one day, and we did exactly what you said, and we took it. Is there a time when you should not touch an animal? Is there, if you see, whether it's a bird, a squirrel,
when it's trying to touch you,
a bald eagle, when is there, it's not a good time to touch them?
Well, there are several cases in which you may not need to rescue an animal. So fledgling birds come to mind, baby rabbits, baby fawn, things like that. They're commonly what we call kidnapped by people who mean well, but they don't actually need to be rescued. So a fledgling bird might be on the ground trying to figure out how to fly, and they haven't quite learned yet, but the parents are still there watching them. That would be a case where you just leave it alone, keep an eye out, make sure no cats come to grab it. And it should be fine in a few days. Anything that's very dangerous, like a bobcat or a coyote, adult raccoon, some of those things, you may not be comfortable grabbing.
Hey, Brooke, it seemed it's Frank here. It seems like the droughts that we face are driving a lot of these animals sort of into the city. They're looking for water or somewhere cool, and they're following the railroad tracks in. And so we're seeing a lot. I mean, we're seeing a lot more coyotes. We're seeing, like you say, a lot more fawn, a lot more, coming this way. What should we be watching out for?
Well, really, honestly, you kind of have to change your point of view here because although Houston is obviously very populous, we're still taking over these locations where the wildlife have been for decades, eons. They live here and we're kind of taking over their space. So a lot of times these animals already lived here before we did, and we are pushing them out essentially, and they may come into more human contact than we would like them to. But most of the time you can leave wildlife alone and it will kind of do its own thing. Most of the time when people get injured or when there's problems are when people are trying to do something about it rather than just letting it kind of take its course. But if you're concerned about an animal in your neighborhood, or if you're not quite sure what to do, you can always call us, or you can call the Texas Parks and Wildlife Department to get kind of more information about human and wildlife interaction.
Okay, I'm going to bring this bigger. If, in fact, my numbers are right, with Hurricane Beryl, you folks admitted over 1,000 animals came in. How do you scale up for that? And how do you keep sanity when all of a sudden something like this hits?
Well, it was a very busy day, the day after the hurricane and the day of the hurricane, honestly. The day of the hurricane, I went out myself personally with some students and I rescued 300 egrets that one day. So, but the next day was just, I think we had like 700 come in the next day. So thankfully we have some rehab partners across Texas, San Antonio, some in Amarillo, Austin. Those groups were willing to take some animals from us. So we were able to transfer some animals out to them to kind of ease the burden on us and our volunteers. But I mean, that's our goal, is to be the place where those things can come when they have no other place.
We talked in our story about the bald eagle. Tell us the story of this infamous bird now.
Yeah, so a young kid or a young man found it. He noticed it in the Neches River, and it was kind of hanging by some fishing line, and there was a fishing hook stuck in one of its wings, like embedded into the wing of the bird. And so it was kind of sitting in water with its wing extended up with its fishing line attached. And this kid found it, and he called a game warden. And the game warden Warden contacted a rehab partner that we work with out in that area. It was out kind of in the Vidor, Texas area is where it came from. And that rehabber and the game warden worked together to capture that eagle and brought it into us. And then we were able to get our veterinarians to remove that fishing hook and line. And then gave it some antibiotics and waited till that wound healed. And then we set it outside in our flight complex to rebuild those muscles and make sure that it could fly. And then we released it.
What is the average time to rehabilitate a wildlife animal?
It's so different depending on what the problem is or why it's coming in. If it's a baby bird, for example, they grow super fast. It may only be here for 3 weeks or so, but if it's got a broken leg or a broken wing and it's an adult bird, it may take months to heal. Turtles can take 5-6 months even. They have really slow metabolisms. So it's very different depending on what's going on in the species.
And will you really name it after us if we bring it in?
Well, we don't actually name any of our patients. They get a number. It helps keep us a little bit more grounded to say, like, these are not pets. They don't want to be handled. We're going to treat them and release them.
They're just visiting.
Love it. Brooke Yahney.
Yeah, we try not to get attached.
Thank you. Is the director of the Houston SPCA's Wildlife Center. Brooke, thank you again for joining us today on Hello Houston.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
And that brings us to the end of our show. We want to thank you for joining us today on Hello Houston. We'll be back tomorrow with more conversations. This is News 88.7.
Thanks for listening to Hello Houston. Join us every Monday through Friday from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. to talk all things Houston. The Hello Houston production team includes Garrett Bowman, William Menjivar, Jen Altine, Todd Holslander, and Jim Kovacic. For the latest in local news, subscribe to the Hello Houston daily newsletter at houstonpublicmedia.org. Hello Houston is a production of Houston Public Media. The opinions expressed by the guests of this program are solely their own and do not represent the views of management, staff, or underwriters of Houston Public Media. This is News 88.7.
This is your NPR station, KUA